Hi everybody, Olga from Eagle here, and today I want to talk to you about something that you've been asking me for a while to talk about. That is Russian classical music. You often ask me to take you to theaters or share with you the biographies of some of Russia's most famous composers, and today I just want to give you a little bit of highlights. I want to share with you what are some of the most famous Russian classical composers, how did Russian music even come about, how it developed, and how it became what it is. And just like with a lot of classical Russian things, just like with art, for example, Russian classical music really truly started in the 19th century. At that time, a lot of countries in Europe were trying to search for their national voice. The same was happening in Scandinavia. The same was happening in Eastern Europe. And so there was a group of Russian composers. They were known as the Mighty Handful, and their idea was to try to find the national voice. And they listened to a lot of folk music, and they tried to create classical music that really responded to Russian folk music. And one of the composers of the Mighty Handful was Modest Mussorgsky. He is probably one of my most favorite Russian composers, and I want to play for you a little piece by him. It's called the Hero's Gate, the opening of the Hero's Gate. Check this out. When I listen to this piece, it makes me think of a town in ancient Russia, maybe the towns in the Golden Ring with the beautiful onion-shaped domes. You know, a lot of these towns have little Kremlins on the territory, and they all have gates, right? And it just makes me imagine how I walk into one of those Kremlins or fortresses, see beautiful onion-shaped domes, and just have the gates open up all of this beauty to me. Another composer in the Mighty Handful had a really complicated name. He had a double last name. His last name was Rimsky-Korsakov, and he created this piece based on a fairy tale, a Russian traditional fairy tale. So there is an opera here, and this part is called The Flight of the Bumblebee. A lot of you probably have heard it before, so here it is. Isn't it amazing? Doesn't it sound just like a bumblebee flying? And the fact that he came up with it and used it to illustrate an amazing fairy tale with music, I think is just amazing. So this group, the Mighty Handful, as I said, they were looking for the national voice. At the same time, there were composers who were striving to create music that was a little bit more similar to some of the conventional European pieces. And of course, Peter Tchaikovsky, Russia's most famous composers, was one of them. Tchaikovsky created lots of different kinds of music, lots of different genres of music, including, of course, ballets and symphonies. And, you know, we all know the Nutcracker. And one thing that you really should try to listen to and watch when you come to Russia is, of course, the Swan Lake Ballet. And here is a part of Swan Lake that lots of you know. The Dance of the Little Swans. Isn't this amazing? And of course, there were some other amazing pieces that he created. Probably one of my most favorite pieces by Tchaikovsky is called the Symphony, the 1812 Symphony. It's dedicated to the victory over Napoleon. And I highly recommend you to check it out because of how creative Tchaikovsky was in creating this symphony. Not only the conventional musical instruments are used in it, but actual cannons. Because this was a war with Napoleon, to just depict this victorious mood of the symphony, he actually had real cannons on stage that gave shots, and that I think was amazing. Look it up. Unfortunately, Peter Tchaikovsky had quite a tragical life. His genius was not recognized as much during his lifetime, and most likely he was gay, which was not accepted in the imperial Russia at that time. He was married to a woman, but he was not happy in this marriage, and there are stories of him being in love with some of his students, the love that unfortunately again couldn't be fulfilled. Tchaikovsky died of cholera. There was a cholera epidemic in St. Petersburg at that time, and he went to a cafe that still exists in St. Petersburg. It's called the Literary Cafe, where he had a glass of water that probably was infested with cholera, and that is how he died. However, there are other theories about his death, and some people believe that he killed himself because he was too unhappy. Can you believe that one of the greatest composers of all time was unhappy? Anyway, Russia in the 20th century is some of the most amazing things I think that happened to culture, that happened to art, because at that time in our country we had a lot of amazing avant-garde art that comes to painting, that comes to sculpture, that comes to literature, and of course that comes to music as well. One of the amazing avant-garde Russian classical composers was Igor Stravinsky, who created also in many different genres. His music also was not well accepted right away. In fact, sometimes it enraged the listeners. Maybe that is the effect that he was striving for. Here's a wonderful piece called The Firebird by Stravinsky that we can listen to now. This, I would say, is a little bit one of the more conventional pieces by Stravinsky. So definitely look him up. And if you are interested in this kind of classical music, more modern classical music, definitely look it up. This is my short overview, the highlights of Russian classical music. Again, we have a lot of amazing composers. I just told you about only 4 today. Please feel free to ask me more questions. Let me know what you would like to hear more about. Maybe what theaters you would like to see, which composers would you like to learn more about. And hopefully that will turn into more of a virtual tour sometime soon. It was wonderful talking to you, and goodbye.